What's up, everybody? Hey, this is another Reuben Show. We're going to talk all sports. We're going to talk the MVP. And I'm going to give you the three people that could be the MVP, and only one is going to be the MVP. And we're going to talk with the three NFL players that are kind of in the running. And the first one, okay, let's get this. I'm the MVP. Maybe. So we're live here. Like, subscribe, follow, all that stuff like that. We're going to have three segments here. The first one, we're going to go with Christian McCaffrey, running back slash extraordinaire all-purpose guy for the San Francisco 49ers, okay? So in order for him to win the MVP, and I'm going to tell you why they won't win it, and I'm going to tell you who's going to win it. And the reason why everybody talked about Christian McCaffrey winning the MVP, he's an amazing player, blah, 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 all-purpose yards. This is all true. However, he didn't play the last game, and so his 2,000 yards all-purpose. By the way, receivers don't really get that record, right? It's usually running backs that get the all-purpose yards kind of record, right? Marshall Faulk is like the guy. By the way, Marshall Faulk has the record for 4 consecutive 2,000 yards from scrimmage. Nobody's even come close. It's a very difficult thing to do, and Christian McCaffrey did it. He got 2,000 yards. This is the second time that he's done it in his career. Now, the thing is that his 2,000-yard mark, if he would have played the last game, he could have had another 200 yards, which would have put him around 2,200 more or less. And the problem with that is the 2,000 yards is average. It's not, I mean, it's an amazing feat what he did. Don't get me wrong. It's an amazing thing of what he did. But it's not like a record. Like, in other words, for you to become, okay, so there's two ways that a running back can get the MVP, okay? Number one, the all-purpose yards thing, Marshall Faulk, right? It's kind of, if you look at the formula for him, the Marshall Faulk method was the way that he was going to get it, okay? Now, Marshall Faulk hadn't got it in it's been many years, right? It's been many years since that happened. But that's kind of the formula for a guy like Christian McCaffrey. Now, his team won a bunch of games, and so here it is, right? So for running backs to win the MVP, your team doesn't necessarily have to have a bunch of wins. Like, you have to be a playoff team, okay? If you're not a playoff team, you can forget about even being considered for the MVP. Now, Christian McCaffrey, like Lamar Jackson, they did not play the last game of the season, which hurt them immensely. Now, would have Dak Prescott not played the last game if they had everything locked up? Of course, they would have sat him too. If they all would have sat, then we would have negated this, right? This would have been a different conversation. So for sure, if in the three-man race between Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, and Christian McCaffrey is coming in third, okay? His 2,000 yards, although amazing, he did, and so another way that a running back can win the MVP is if you have 2,000 yards rushing in a season. It's amazing. It's hard to do, and it's very rare for a running back, or have a ton of touchdowns, okay? So you have to have these extreme kind of outlier type of performances for the year, and Christian McCaffrey sitting out the last game did not help him at all. He sat out the last game. There's 17 games in the season. If you really look at the numbers, the 2,400 yard mark is kind of where the top marks are. So you figure realistically, for you to break a record in the all-purpose yards, it'd be like 2,500 yards rushing. I mean, all-purpose yards, whatever mix it is. So he didn't even come close. He's at 2,000 yards. Let's say if he would have had a 300-yard game, let's say he had 150 yards rushing, 150 yards receiving, then we could have talked about this idea that he was in the running for MVP. He's an amazing player. I give everything to him. But he is the third person, if we're talking about MVP type caliber performances, right? And we'll get to the quarterbacks because there's only 2 quarterbacks left, but that's kind of like where I look at it. Everybody's going to say, well, he deserves it. He is a dynamic runner, catcher. He's very influential in his team. He has a huge impact. He accounts for a big percentage of their offense, and he's instrumental, right? He's an important piece of the puzzle when we look at all this other stuff. And so there's that with it. You can't argue that he's not a valuable player, but an MVP performance, I would say no. I would say that he didn't come close. Matter of fact, it's kind of a little bit kind of out there for him, for us to actually think that he got it. If he gets it, it's going to be weird because he didn't earn his statistics and his team's winning record. Like if his team was undefeated, if he had 30 touchdowns, he didn't have any of those things. He had 2,000 yards all-purpose rushing, which is an amazing feat, but by itself, it's not enough to warrant, because you have an extra game from the people that do the 2,000 yards from scrimmage, running backs, because receivers don't really do it. The 2,000 yard mark is the bottom of the barrel. So in order for him to have an extraordinary, like he would have to have been top 10 in that, top 5 in that. He'd have to have had, a 2,000 yard season, or he'd have to have 1,000 yards rushing, 1,000 yards receiving. That kind of extreme kind of statistic is what you kind of look for in that type of MVP caliber performance. That's all it basically is, right? You have to have a performance that kind of fits that level. And I think that in what he did, he fell short a little bit, right? They didn't play the last game because their team, had a good record. And so for that, he kind of missed out on it. He could have had an extreme game. He could have had a 300-yard game. Then it would have been hard to argue for him not to get it, because that would have put him at 2,300 yards, all-purpose yards, which is like the top level. We're at the max here. So him being so much of the offense and having that many yards, then yeah, you can see that, right? But no, Christian McCaffrey, if he gets it, it's going to be weird because he does it of what running backs usually do to get that kind of mark. He's kind of come short to that. He's come up short. And part of it is I blame this NFL system. And we can explore this in another video, because this idea of sitting players, I think that's kind of a travesty. I think it's not fair to people that pay hard-earned cash, moolah, dinero, cheddar, to watch these players play, and they sit out because they have a good record. So you saved all your money, and you can only afford to go to the last game of the season to see maybe your favorite player in, like, say, Lamar Jackson, Christian McCaffrey, and because they weren't hurt, but because the teams were fearful that they might get injured for the playoffs, that they sit them. Do the young people, it's a huge disappointment. This happens in the NBA, and it became a problem in the NBA to the point where they had to actually address it. I think the NFL has the wrong idea behind that. And so that's why Christian McCaffrey is not going to win the MVP. He didn't play all the games, even though he wasn't hurt. And you might say that that's not up to you, but as a player, if you want to win those kind of accolades that can get you giant contracts, you should not be sitting out any game period. And everybody says, yeah, but they're going to get ready for the playoffs. He's not going to get his contracts negotiating is not going to be any more or less if they win a Super Bowl, because in the running back position, it's a team thing. The quarterbacks are different because they touch the ball every single game, every single down, and they have a bigger impact on the game, right? They have control of the game, so it's different for them, but it's not. And then so there's that, right? So let me get to the next person here, but first, like, subscribe. Tell me what you guys think, and I don't say that enough, and I'm supposed to call this call to action to tell people to follow. I'm on YouTube, I'm on X, I'm on Facebook, these videos, and I'm on all audio platforms. You can listen to it. They're 30-minute shows. Try to post every day. It's kind of difficult, but I'm going to try to do it. I posted one yesterday. I'll edit this and post this tonight. And so anyways, getting back to the next person is Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson's team did a very good job. Him and his team, he is electrifying. He's amazing. But again, he did not play the last game of the season, right? So what happens is, because he didn't play the last game of the season, now your team is third, and they lost the last game, by the way. So here it is, right? So the Baltimore Ravens are 13-4, okay? And if we're going to have the next person 12-5. So you look at Dak Prescott and Lamar Jackson. These are the last two people I'm talking about. I'm talking about Lamar Jackson. He has amazing statistics. He has a lot of rushing yards. He's very dynamic. He's very influential. All this stuff is true, right? All this stuff is true. But the close tie between him and Dak Prescott of the Dallas Cowboys, I have to give it to Dak Prescott. And the reason why Lamar Jackson, I don't think, earned it is because he didn't play the last game. You got to play the whole season. You're not hurt. People go to see you. So to me, you're not worthy of an MVP. You got to play the whole season. I don't care if your team locked up the playoffs. I don't care. People want to go see you. Part of being entertaining. This is an entertainment business. The business of the NFL is entertainment. So you mean to tell me that I paid all this money to see one of the most electrifying players in the NFL, and he sat out not because he was injured, not because he was sick, not because he was holding out because of his contract negotiation, because he had the potential to have a 5,000-yard season. He ended up with like 4,700 yards between the rushing and the passing yards, and he had a bunch of touchdowns, and all that stuff is great. But Dak Prescott was ahead of him on that. So his performances were great. So let's say if he would have had 300 yards passing, let's say he would have had up to 5,100 yards. Now that, and they would have won, they would have been 2 games above everybody in the record. Then he would have been an automatic shoo-in for the MVP. 100% shoo-in for the MVP. And people say, well, no, Reuben, the games that he played, they were influential. No, you didn't play the last game of the season, so you're playing it safe. You're not the most valuable person in the NFL if you didn't even play in the last game of the season. Well, we got the first. You have a first round bye. You're gonna get rest, and your team played it too safe. Nobody should win the NFL MVP. I don't care what your stats are. If you're not going to play the last game of the season because of playoff implications. So that means that you didn't care about the regular season, so why should you be considered for that? Now, that's my opinion, and I know a lot of people disagree on this, but that's my opinion of the whole deal. If you're not going to play the whole season, and if you're not hurt, if you're hurt, that's a different story. If you're injured, if you have some kind of issue, if you're sick, again, that is different. But not playing because your team takes you out, that's a team's decision where they kind of mess it all up. I would not vote for Lamar Jackson as MVP because of that reason, because of Christian McCaffrey, because now we don't know what his statistics could have been. He could have had a 5-touchdown game like our buddy Dak Prescott did in the last game of the season, right? We could have had that. Was it 5 touchdowns or 4? Whatever it was a bunch of touchdowns. 38-10. The Cowboys won. So he could have had 4 touchdowns. I'm sorry. He had 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. And by the way, that interception, so that would have put him he got 9 interceptions for the year. So Lamar Jackson, although electrifying, although dominating, although all this other stuff and all these statistics, his statistics are technically average. And his win total is just 1 game above the person that I think deserves record for the MVP. Oh, Reuben, you're wrong. You're wrong. You're this and this and that. 4,700 yards passing, 800 of them, 823 yards, I think, were rushing. He's electrifying. He's dynamic. He has a huge impact. But when you don't play the last game of the season, what are we really talking about here? You're coasting it into the playoffs? You could have at least played the half of the game, and then you would have probably won it. You would have had a touchdown. So you didn't play the whole game. You literally did not play the whole game. You're out. You're out. You're not going to win the MVP on that. That's a no-go. That's a simple no-go. Why would we reward a player for skipping out on the regular season's final game because of the playoffs? This is the same thing that Christian McCaffrey, once those 2 guys did not play the 17th game of the year, I kind of said it was the race was close. The race was close, right? Christian McCaffrey statistics, although amazing, they're not shockers. Lamar Jackson, this is what we're talking about right now. Great statistics, not shocking. 4,700 total yards, 3,800, 3,900 passing yards. You're not even top 10, right? Are we being honest here? Are you top 10? Let's see what you are in passing. Let's see. Lamar Jackson. 15th in passing. A quarterback gets fifth. He's the 15th ranked quarterback in passing yards is going to win the MVP. Yeah, Reuben, what about the rushing yards? 821. He's done that before. And he's won the MVP before. He's had to have better stats. You can't give it to him because you missed a game. Now, if he'd have played that last game, that would have put him over 4,000 yards. That would have put him in the top 10. And maybe he would have had 100. Let's say if he'd had 350, because Lamar Jackson, he's got his offense rolling. But they shut everybody down. He's got amazing players. They're dominating. None of that was on display on Game 17. You can't do that, folks. You can't give the MVP to somebody that doesn't play the 17th game. Well, yeah, but they were so good, Reuben. No, they were only one game better than the next quarterback that should get the MVP. One game better. Now, if they would have won that game, you can have that argument, but he still didn't play. You got to play. There's no if, and, or buts about it. You can't get my vote for MVP if you're skipping games because you don't want to get hurt. That means you're an electrified player. You're amazing, but you're not the most valuable player. How are you the most valuable player and you didn't play? CMC, I don't even know who CMC is. You want me to rescue Chris? You want me to, help me with that one. I don't even know who CMC is. What is that, a rebar place? What is that, a fabricator? What is that? Is that a trucking company? What are you talking about here, Chris? Yeah. Washington has a halfway decent quarterback. I don't know what's going to happen with that one. But anyways, so you have Lamar Jackson with these good stats. He has a good record, but he's not the guy. I don't think he earned it. Now, that being said, people are going to vote for him because they feel that they have to vote for him because the person that should win it, there's going to be haters. People are going to not vote for Dak Prescott. And let's get on to this, right? So this is the last person. This is who I think should win the MVP. And you got to hear me out. Hear me out. Okay, number one, he played the whole season. Okay, number two, he went from like having the highest interceptions to like the lowest interception. He's leading the league. He led the league in touchdowns, right? It's got too much of a quarterback award. It's supposed to be the most valuable player on that team. No, it's supposed to be the most valuable player in the NFL. That's what the most valuable player in the NFL. That's not what it is. The most valuable player for the team, that's called All-Pro. That's called first team, your team. No, most valuable player to the NFL. Am I wrong on this? That's what I'm seeing about this. And you're right. And I just explained earlier about in order to win the run, in order for Christian McCaffrey, he needed more all-purpose yards. 2,000 yards is a low mark, and it's not like it doesn't pop out of the screen for me. Right? So if we make the case, first of all, and another thing too, receivers are not going to make the MVP. That doesn't happen. I don't think this ever happened. And there's nobody that's Lawrence Taylor capable or even close to his level, because that's the last person, or I think the only person ever to win the MVP that was on defense. Okay. So if we look at the statistics, right? Okay. So Christian McCaffrey, if he would have had 2,400, if he would have broke the all-purpose mark, then yeah, I can see you giving it to him. I can see that. Lamar Jackson, although he is amazing, the statistics don't blow you away. In order for a running back to get it, you either got to have 2,000 yards running, you got to be like LaDainian Tomlinson, have 30 yards rushing touchdowns, 32 total. Like you got to have some kind of crazy statistic. You don't have to have all the wins as a running back, because I looked it up. Of all the running backs that won MVP, it's either two. And Christian McCaffrey Yeah, okay. So here it is. This is my point with this, right? You have a good point. Because if Tyreek Hill would have got 2,000 yards receiving, if he would have got 2,000 yards receiving, and let's say he would have had 100, if he would have led the league in receiving yards, if he would have broke the record and tied and got close to the record, let's say I think the receptions record for a year is like 143. Let's say he got 140 and over 2,000 yards receiving, and he had like say 18 touchdowns. Then you can make a hard case for him to be the MVP. I agree with you. The Christian McCaffrey, his statistics don't blow anybody out of the water. Lamar Jackson's statistics don't blow anybody out of the water. They just don't. They just don't. You're not top, right? You're not the tops. And that's what everybody's going to argue. And the fact that if you don't play the last game, you're out, dude. If you're healthy and your team sits you because of playoffs implications, I'm not giving you the MVP, dude. Go be the playoff MVP then. You want to become the playoff MVP, then you can get that award. But you're not going to get a regular season MVP if you can't play the last game. Those little kids, where that mom and dad, they had to work overtime to get to go to a football game because it's not cheap anymore. So every reward's $100 to park. You're not going to play it? You're not going to play Lamar Jackson? You're out. Last person, and we're running out of time here. Dak Prescott's got to get it. Final game of the season, they get that 38-10 win. They secure the second seed. They're undefeated at home. Boom. There you go. That's number one. Undefeated at home. Okay. Number two, led the league in touchdowns. Okay. Where is he at? Okay. And then here's another thing. Leads the league in quarterback completion percentage. Third in yardage. Okay. Not only that, so those are the stakes. There we go. But if you're a Dallas Cowboy hater, I get it. You're gonna be like, "Oh, Bill, we're not gonna vote for a Cowboy anyway because we're just a hater." You can't deny those statistics. No way I'll believe it if they make the playoff run. We're talking regular season, my guy. Yes, the Cowboys will probably flop in the playoffs, but we're talking about regular season. I'm not disagreeing with you. And then here's another stat too. Okay. CeeDee Lamb was on fire. Okay? 135 receptions in the year, 1,749 yards receiving, 12 touchdowns. Okay? That's all the stats you need. Quarterback Dak Prescott, he got the resume of numerals. He played the whole season, right? Improved from last year. Again, touchdown with only was it 36 touchdowns with 9 interceptions, and the last one was he still got it. It's still recorded. Okay, we're running out of time here. So how do you argue his statistics pop out and the fact that he has a receiver that is out of this world, right? CeeDee Lamb, 135 receptions for 181 targets. Yeah, CeeDee Lamb is amazing, but the fact is Dak Prescott got him the ball the whole year. Okay? And his team, if we're comparing Lamar Jackson and him, there's only one game's difference. Yeah, Reuben, but Baltimore didn't they sat all their starters in the last game. They could have had 2 games, but they did it. Correct yourself. They did not, though. The record is as follows. Right? What is the standings here? The Cowboys are what? 12-5. The Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson and company, 13-4. One game difference. Okay? So you gotta pop out. You gotta the statistics gotta strike me. They gotta they gotta explode off the page. They didn't explode off the page. Right? You got to explode off the page. The page got to be like, wow, he did that, right? Tom Brady, 16-0 regular season. Remember that? Was that 2007, like 52 years ago when he was still, because he just retired a couple years ago. I think he played before even the internet existed, right? So you have all those. You have, the year that Patrick Mahomes threw for 54 touchdowns. That pops. Marshall Faulk, 2,329 yards, all-purpose yards. It pops. It pops. By the way, too, that team, that Marshall Faulk, because that's the parallel to Christian McCaffrey, they had some good players on there too. So he wasn't alone in that whole situation. Okay, just so we establish this, we understand this. Okay, so there's that whole dynamic. So what are we really doing here, right? Now, do we want to give this to Dak Prescott? Of course not. People do not want to give this award to Dak Prescott because he plays for the Dallas Cowboys that are probably the most popular football team in the entire NFL, which means they're the most popular football team in the world because there's nobody else. If Dak not even the MVP of his team, he is the MVP of his team. See, this is where you're wrong. See, you're a hater. That's why your guy Howell got sacked 73 times in the game. I get what you're saying. In your option or in your opinion, okay, I see you, but I disagree with you. See, who are we comparing? He had a better season than Lamar Jackson. See, everybody just doesn't want to give it a Dak because they stink in the playoffs, and I don't disagree with that observation. But we're talking about regular season here, right? You don't play the last game of the season, you're garbage to me. I don't care who you are. It's not fair. It's not right. You shouldn't do that. NFL shouldn't be allowed to do that. And I know Dak Prescott would have done that. Okay. I know I'm sounding like a hypocrite, but you shouldn't do that. No teams should sit their players in the last game of the season. It's not fair to people that buy the tickets to see these people. You think to buy a ticket it's free? You think I'm getting free tickets out here? No way. No siree. And what happens? Oh, no, Reuben, you don't get it. No, I do get it. Go tell little Timmy when he's like, where's Lamar Jackson? He's my favorite player of the whole world because he should be the MVP of the NFL. Didn't play. It's all right, son. Let's go watch Dak Prescott. We sold our tickets because nobody's playing. That's exactly my point with that. We got to stop allowing this to happen. These tickets are too expensive, dude. You got to go get a personal loan. You got to go get a loan from J.G. Wentworth. I want my money and I want it now to go watch a game. Are you kidding me? No, absolutely not. Dak Prescott, he's going to get the MVP. That's who the winner is. There's no if, and or buts about it. I almost guarantee you. They give it to Lamar Jackson, that's a travesty. Minute counts in the NBA, all the same. I don't even understand what you just said right there, Chris. You want chess, dude? I'm playing checkers right here, bro. I'm playing checkers. We're not. You see this little pimple on my head's gonna start bleeding. You try to make me think now. By the way, like, subscribe, tell me what you think. The podcast is almost over. I gotta record this, but I can stay live. We could talk about this too. But anyways.